Hello, my name is John Grabo, and on behalf of the Finance Council, I would like to take a few minutes of your time today to talk about last year's financial statement and to say a few words about this year's budget. The 2020 year-end financial statement will be sent out with the bulletin this coming week. Paper copies will also be available in the office for those of you who prefer a hard copy. Now, obviously, due to the current restrictions, I will not be in the lobby after each Mass to answer any questions or concerns that you might have. But I would encourage you that if you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to call the office, leave your name and your number, and I will get back to you. Now, before I get into the numbers, I would just like to take this opportunity to acknowledge and to thank all of those who worked so hard over the past year to adjust to the unprecedented circumstances that we found ourselves in. I would like to especially recognize Father Mark and Father JD for their leadership in helping us throughout the year. So thank you very much. Now, needless to say, 2020 didn't go quite as we had planned. And as you will see in the statement, we didn't achieve the financial goal that we had set out at the beginning of last year. Just as a reminder, we had budgeted to end 2020 at about $43,000 to the good. Surprisingly though, we did a lot better than what we had anticipated when we first looked at the numbers back in June. At that time, we were on track to losing about $100,000. But the good Lord was looking after us. After all the numbers were in, we ended 2020 with $3,350 on the positive side, which was fantastic. So what happened? How did we go from possibly losing a lot to making a little bit? Well, first of all, looking at our income, typically about 80% of our total income comes from you through your generous contributions. And about 20% of that comes in the form of loose collections, which typically amounts to about $10,000 per month or $120,000 per year. Up until the middle of March, we were doing okay. Then, as you may recall, due to the pandemic, churches were shut down. Over the next 3 months, our weekly envelope donations dropped by about 30%, and our loose collections became non-existent. Then in mid-June, after the churches were finally allowed to partially reopen, our donations started to slowly recover. But by the end of September, our financial situation had not improved that much, and we were starting to get a little bit concerned. So Father Mark and Father JD decided to say something about our financial difficulties. They reminded all of us of our financial responsibility to the church, and they talked about the various options for us to donate. After that gentle reminder, we started to see donations finally increase to almost pre-pandemic levels. At this time, I would like to thank all of you who continue to support the church financially throughout this past year, in spite of everything that was happening around us. So as far as donations go, we still ended the year about $150,000 less in 2020 than we did in 2019. We also, for obvious reasons, didn't have much rental income, which set us further behind by another $10,000. So once again, we found ourselves subsidizing our day-to-day expenses with our reserve fund. Well, that's the bad news. The good news is our income loss was at least partially subsidized by, first, the wage subsidy program introduced by the federal government, which brought in about $67,000. And secondly, our church groups contributed just over $11,000. So thank you to the CWL, who donated $5,400, the Knights of Columbus, who gave us $1,500, and to our Filipino community, which coordinated the Simbag Gabi Novena before Christmas, which raised just over $4,300. Well, that's a quick overview of what happened to our income. Now on to the expenses. I want to start out by telling Father Mark that we're all tired of you asking, where else can we cut expenses? I think everybody did a pretty good job in controlling our expenses over the past year, while still providing whatever services we could during the restrictions. Overall expenses in 2020 were reduced by 7.2% as compared to 2019, which was about a $48,000 reduction. Now, this reduction in expenses was over and above the additional $11,000 we spent on COVID costs and another $10,000 we paid in necessary upgrades to our fire suppression system. With the church shut down, we had also hoped to save on our utilities. But with the increase in utility costs, we didn't realize any savings. So as far as expenses go, I'm not sure what else we could have done. So bottom line, we ended 2020 with almost $666,000 in total income and just over $662,000 in total expenses for a net income of $3,350. That's 2020 in a nutshell. Yes, we didn't achieve our budget goal, and we once again had to dip into our reserves. But all things considered, I think we survived 2020 pretty good. Now, having said that, I believe we're not out of the woods yet. I really don't think that 2021 is going to be a whole lot different than last year. I just pray that it isn't any worse. As far as the budget, we have put together a balanced budget for this year. In other words, we are hoping our income is going to be enough to cover our expenses. Now, this isn't going to be easy, especially with all the COVID restrictions, but I believe that we can do it. For as long as I can remember, St. Charles parishioners have always stepped up to the challenge. Now, what that means for each and every one of us is that we need to take a look at our current financial support to the church and decide if that's really all we can do, or can we afford to give just a little bit more? Remember, we're all in this together. Now, one final item. I would like to announce that since we can't hold our annual Pasta Supper and Silent Auction fundraiser this year, the Finance Council has teamed up with our Knights of Columbus and the CWL, and we have decided to hold an online 50-50 draw. Now, tickets for the St. Charles 50-50 will go on sale sometime in mid-February, with the draw being towards the end of March. Details are just being finalized, so more information will be available very shortly. In conclusion, on behalf of the Finance Council, I would like to once again thank everybody for their continued support to the financial well-being of our parish.